everyone. I'm Dan Abrams, and this is Court Cam.
Call the buzzer. Call
Take him back! Take him out!
You die in prison as well.
I've never witnessed such disrespect, callousness, and stupidity in my life.
That's Michigan District Court Judge Kenneth King, and the person he's addressing is the driver of this orange Chevy Camaro.
Hey! We on 94 with it, baby!
As onlookers cheer the driver on, he whips donuts on I-94, a major expressway leading into the city of Detroit. The viral stunt goes on for more than 10 minutes and causes a major traffic backup.
What's the traffic? What you talking about? We on 94 with it, baby!
The video floods social media and gets thousands of views. But police are not impressed by the highway sideshow and call for the driver to turn himself in. A week later, the man in the photos, 22-year-old Devin Kronk, does turn himself in.
Yes, Your Honor.
And is charged with reckless driving and disturbing the peace. His license is suspended. After getting picked up for driving with a suspended license, the judge at this bond hearing lets him know he's been following his case closely.
Unfortunately for Mr. Kronk, his judge watches the news.
After setting his bond at $5,000, Judge Kenneth King hits him with a dose of reality.
I've never witnessed such disrespect, callousness, and stupidity in my life.
Fighting back tears, Kronk tries to make an excuse.
I thought I had a license. I didn't see that.
Okay, sir, even if you did believe you had a license, do you not understand why you're here to begin with?
Yeah, for the stunt that I pulled.
Kronk would plead guilty to disturbing the peace, and his reckless driving charge dropped. Judge King then hands down a sentence of 1 year probation with a long list of conditions, including an order not to drive, no use of alcohol or drugs, and 30 days community service. He also gives Kronk a little advice.
Quite frankly, your actions up to this point have been reckless. You have to be a leader, sir, not a follower.
We on 94 with it, baby!
A warning here, our next story may be disturbing for some viewers. We're in Cincinnati, Ohio, for the sentencing of two parents, 50-year-old Herman C. and his partner, 44-year-old Angela Stites. They're about to hear impact statements from two victims of sexual abuse, their own daughters.
I'm so angry and hurt by you. You were supposed to protect me from monsters like him.
I thought all families did what we did. I thought all little girls and their fathers were supposed to have a relationship that me and you had. That's what happens when you brainwash a 5-year-old little girl. You were never supposed to hurt me.
Days earlier, their father was convicted of 22 counts of rape against them and their sister over the course of 14 years, beginning when they were just children. Their mother was a party to these horrible crimes and was also convicted of 4 counts of rape, multiple counts of complicity to rape, and endangering children. The abuse came to light after one of the girls reported it to a school official.
In the Bible, you're supposed to wait for marriage for something like that. I got 2 horrible parents. You lost so much because of him already, and now you have lost your life too.
Despite their horrific experiences, the brave sisters persevered and now are attempting to move forward.
For years, you have tried to control my life, and now I finally have all my control back. You can no longer hurt me or my sisters. You can no longer hurt anyone else for as long as you're living. And with that, I feel like I conquered the world.
The sisters' devastating words seemingly have no effect on their father, who stands defiant before Judge Patrick Dinkelacker.
Well, you want me to kiss your ass? Funny things. Come on with the sentences. Don't think too hard. You might blow your little brain up. I'm ready to meet my maker. Your little threats here and your little life sentence is far from threatening me. And don't scare me, and I will not bow down to you or your courts. Oh, yes, you do. Yes, you do. I bow down to him right now. No, I bow to the Lord. Stand up. Oh, now you don't want me to bow to the real man, do you? That's what I thought. You're fake. You're fake.
Shame on me.
Shame on you. I'm a dirty man. Yes, I am.
The judge then hands down sentences that likely mean both parents die in prison. Herman C. is given 221 years plus 4 life sentences, and Angela Stites receives 86 years in prison for the crimes against her own daughters. Next, we head to Sanford, Florida, where closing arguments are underway in the trial of Antonio Rosales. Rosales is accused of dragging a 10-year-old girl off the street and into a wooded area, where he reportedly assaulted and raped her. The defendant is described as a drifter with a violent past. Assistant State Attorney Anna Valentini is delivering her closing argument when Rosales, through a translator, vehemently objects. Seemingly insulted by being labeled a child molester, Rosales grabs a keyboard and smashes the computer monitor on the defense table. Two officers attempt to restrain him, slamming him to the floor. Meanwhile, Judge Deborah Nelson seems as though she's struggling to open a door, so she calls for some help. But Rosales is not done fighting. Finally, with the help of additional officers, Rosales is cuffed and then carried out of the courtroom.
Everybody calm down. I'll take it tonight. Just investigate everything.
Judge Nelson suspends the trial for the evening. The next day, the jury finds Rosales guilty of kidnapping, attempted murder, and sexual battery. He receives 3 life sentences. Next, we head to Suffolk Superior Court in Boston for the trial of Andrew McCormick. The 31-year-old is charged with first-degree murder in the killing of his wife, Vanessa Masucci, a second-grade school teacher. Masucci was beaten, stabbed, and strangled, all while her 1-year-old daughter was in the house. At the crime scene, McCormick appears emotional. When police question him, he seems shocked and devastated by his wife's death. But during the investigation, police notice a large kitchen knife missing from the home, blood on McCormick's clothes, and a rash on his body consistent with bleach, the same material allegedly used to clean up the crime scene, and they become suspicious. When asked about the rash, McCormick says he recently switched detergents.
Only causing you to break out the rash? No. Just that area of the shaft? Yeah.
Police don't buy it. And after learning Masucci was threatening to leave her husband because he spent thousands of dollars of family savings on a cocaine habit, McCormick is charged with murder. At his arraignment, McCormick is distraught as the prosecutor provides specific details of the gruesome attack.
She had signs of both manual strangulation and suffocation, the latter possibly from a trash bag that appeared to have been put on her head at some point.
McCormick remains emotional and pleads not guilty. At the trial 2 years later, as 2 grieving families relived this awful crime, the jury returned with a unanimous verdict.
Guilty of murder in the first degree.
At the the sentencing, Masucci's parents, and now guardian of their grandchild, talk about the heartbreaking loss of their daughter.
I will cry about the pain she was in those last moments when I wasn't there to help protect her, like I promised I would do when she was growing up.
No one in this world ever did or ever will love Andrew as much as Vanessa did. And he repaid that love by viciously killing her.
Finally, when it's McCormick's turn to address the court, there would be no apology.
I did not murder her. I have never raised a finger to Vanessa, and I sure as hell didn't kill her.
McCormick was sentenced to life at the Massachusetts Correctional Institution with no chance of parole. Let's face it, if this is your mugshot, you know you've had a rough day. This is 46-year-old Portland, Oregon resident Mark Seibenmorgan. He's been arraigned after going what police called a one-man crime spree that included allegedly shoving a man to the ground, jumping on the hood of a car, flexing his muscles, then kicking in the windshield, and finally throwing rocks at a woman.
I have some paperwork for me, sir. Yes, sir.
Seibenmorgan has been charged with assault, menacing, harassment, and criminal mischief.
Is that your true name in the upper left-hand corner spelled correctly?
Well, true name, it's all capitals. It means I'm a corporation, whatever's that all about, sir.
Your attorney is Mr. Noss, is that correct?
And he kicks Gluteus Maximus, sir.
Turns out his lawyer does kick Gluteus Maximus. 3 of the charges are eventually dropped, and Seibenmorgan is later found not guilty of first-degree criminal mischief. While the results of his case were not highly publicized, his mugshot will live in infamy. Now to Durham, North Carolina, where Judge James Hill is presiding over a child custody case. For 3 long days, divorced parents Roshana and Colin Morrison have been going at it, quite personally, in the courtroom.
I'm angry that his dad lives in Durham, can go on vacations with friends, take his sisters out to eat, take her on vacation, and can't seem to see his son.
The child's mother, Roshana, claims her ex-husband abandoned their 3-year-old son and failed to pay child support. He argues she withheld his son from him and is seeking permanent custody. And the judge? Well, he isn't happy with either of them.
I could care less about it, do you? I could. To tell you you're not important.
And he's about to let them know it.
That 2 parents, and I'm going to choose my words very carefully here, 2 parents can come in and act like such idiots. No one one that crawled into bed and had sex and made that baby. He didn't ask to be born. But he was. What's important is and you don't need to see 2 adults acting like idiots. Did I say the word idiots?
He did. 3 times. Afterward, Judge Hill turns his attention towards Roshana.
I have no doubt that you have withheld that little boy. Don't you be looking at me. You say one more word, you say one more word, you're going to go to the Durham County Bed Breakfast today. You say one more word, all right? Deputy Neville, she's got 24 hours of protective court to run her back as soon as we get done. All right, we got 48 hours. You want to say it again? She's got 48 hours now, Deputy.
Roshana eventually quiets down, and finally, after 3 heated days in the courtroom, the judge delivers his decision.
Parents, fit and proper persons have custody of our child under joint custody.
This is a disgrace. What you guys are doing, you need to let your son for 9 months come take care of him. You're a drunk, you have a mystery, you have no one who doesn't do anything for us. I take care of my baby and I get with you to be your son right whenever you feel like.
As officers try to restrain her, Morrison's brother, Sherrod Smith, comes forward from the back of the courtroom. At first, he tries to help by calming down his sister. But when that doesn't work, and Roshana throws a bailiff a right hook, Big Brother's caught in the middle. Officers try to restrain him, but he sends one of them flying. Meanwhile, the judge makes a quick exit, As one deputy fights to gain control of Morrison, another puts her brother in handcuffs. And here come even more officers to shut things down. As Morrison and Smith are taken away, a third person is also restrained in the back of the courtroom. Their mother.
You should have videoed it. It's okay. You should have videoed it.
Smith and his mother are hit with 48 hours in jail for resisting a public officer, while Morrison receives 30 days. Morrison and her husband now have a joint custody agreement. Judge James Hill received a public reprimand by the North Carolina Supreme Court for improperly exercising his contempt powers, failing to maintain order and decorum, and making inappropriate comments. Next, we go to Omaha, Nebraska, for the sentencing of former Dr. Anthony Garcia, the man responsible for a string of murders that have become known as the Creighton Killings. In 2008, Garcia went to the home of his ex-boss, Dr. William Hunter, seeking revenge against the man who fired him from his Creighton University residency 7 years earlier. There, Garcia stabbed and killed both the doctor's 11-year-old son, Thomas, and housekeeper Shirley Sherman. The case went unsolved until 2013, when Garcia returned to Omaha, this time killing Dr. Roger Brumbach, another former Creighton employer, as well as his wife, Mary. Garcia was charged with 4 counts of murder and multiple weapons charges, and in 2016, found guilty on all charges. Prosecutors in his case are seeking the maximum penalty for Garcia, death.
State of Nebraska versus Anthony Garcia.
2 years later, as Garcia appears before a panel of judges to learn his sentence, the man is asleep, or at least pretending to be asleep, even while several family members deliver heartfelt impact statements to the court.
We've heard a lot from the press, especially about after today, we'll finally get closure. When you have a loved one taken from you in such a vicious, inhumane manner, that'll never happen.
Young child of 11 3/4 years should never have to innocently lose his life in a fit of anger.
I'm left with constant images from courtroom photos of my mom laying there in a pool of her own blood with an 8-inch butcher knife hanging out her neck. I can't get those images ever out of my head.
While Garcia still looks as if he's napping, District Judge Rick Schreiner addresses the court.
The defendant traveled from his home in Indiana to Omaha, Nebraska to commit 4 murders on 2 separate occasions. Those facts suggest lengthy premeditation and exceptionally depraved mentality. The defendant had 5 years to reflect on the gruesomeness of the first 2 murders before he returned to Omaha to commit 2 more murders. He had no remorse after the first 2 murders. In fact, he bragged about them.
As the judge moves to sentence him, Garcia remains still.
The defendant now stands convicted of 4 murders.
Until finally, he shows some slight movement.
The panel finds that a sentence of death is not excessive. It is therefore ordered, as to count 1, murder in the first degree, that a sentence of death is imposed on the defendant, Anthony Garcia.
Not even a sentence of death can wake the slumbering Garcia.
Mr. Garcia, you are remanded to the custody of the Douglas County Sheriff for execution of this sentence.
Altogether, Garcia receives 136 years for the weapons charges and a spot on death row at the Tecumseh State Correctional Facility.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
That's all for this edition of Court Cam. I'm Dan Abrams. Thanks for watching. Hi everyone, I'm Dan Abrams, and this is Court Cam.
Call the buzzer. Call
Take him back! Take him out!
I hope you die in prison as well.
First up, we're inside Highland County Courthouse in Greenfield, Ohio. At the edge of the camera's view, deputies are taking 34-year-old Nicholas Garrison into custody. He's been convicted of possession of methamphetamine. But as the deputies are about to find out, he's in possession of another kind of speed. Now he's going Going? Gone. Let's back things up and see exactly what happened here. Watch as Garrison waits to make his break until both deputies have their backs to him. He then splits the two officers. And a third is no match for his open court speed. He hits the stairs as Deputy Ben Reno takes a flying leap over the railing to stop him. But Garrison just slips through his fingers and is able to break out of the courthouse and escape outside. Nicholas Garrison would elude police for almost 4 days before being captured. He now faces additional charges for his courtroom breakout. As for Deputy Reno, who took that daring dive into the stairwell, he suffered 4 broken ribs and a minor concussion in his attempt to foil the escape, but eventually made a full recovery. Next, we're in Paris, Kentucky, where 30-year-old Bass Webb has been charged with 2 counts of attempted murder. This surveillance video taken outside a Kentucky jail a week earlier captured the moment when Webb, a former inmate there who served 3 months on assault charges, accelerated his car and tried to run over 2 jail employees. One man was able to get out of the way, but one man was injured after Webb's vehicle pinned him against the wall. At his first court appearance before Judge Vanessa Dixon, Webb's bad behavior continued. Judge Dixon then informed Webb she's recusing herself from the trial because she knew the 2 jail employees he targeted with his vehicle.
There's no way I'm going to try this case or have any further proceedings where I have to see you for 100%. Except for the very
Watch again as Webb literally spit on the judge. But this incident is far from the last time Bass Webb will spit in the face of the law. While waiting to go to trial, he and 4 other inmates incited a riot inside the Fayette County Detention Center. After being shot with beanbag bullets, then hit in the neck by a pepper ball, Webb whips a metal telephone box at a corrections officer.
If I were to launch this at someone 10 feet away, because this is capable of stopping that, does not mean that that is not readily capable of causing death or serious physical injury.
Webb was found guilty of 3rd-degree assault and sentenced to 15 years in prison. And for his attempt to run over the 2 jail employees, he was later found guilty of 2 counts of attempted murder and got an additional 37 years. Bass Webb was facing a total of 52 years behind bars, but more disturbing accusations were on the way. While incarcerated, he was charged with the unsolved murder of an ex-girlfriend. Facing a possible death sentence if convicted at trial, Webb pled guilty to the murder and got an additional 50 years. Now, 5 years later, Bass Webb is back in court yet again after being charged with the murder of a different girlfriend nearly a decade earlier. The cold case came back to haunt him after a jailhouse tip led to the discovery of the woman's remains. This time, as he's let in, he reveals a new sinister look that shocks those in attendance. A closer look at Webb's recent head tattoos reveals a demented murder hit list. It reads, "Those that must die, all judges, all prosecutors, all cops, the media." Below that, 3 rats have been scratched out, and many more, plus an expletive on the other side. Gruesome details emerge about how Webb choked his then-girlfriend to death and buried her body in a shallow grave.
Mr. Webb, do you want to come forward?
When the judge asks Webb to come forward, he remains seated and smiles. Finally, after more than a week in the courtroom, the judge reads the jury's verdict.
You have found the defendant guilty of the offense of intentional murder.
Das Webb is then sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Now to Green Bay, Wisconsin, where a sentencing hearing for David Myers underway.
I can promise that I'll live every day for the rest of my life trying to make amends for this.
So what is the 46-year-old defendant trying to make amends for? 2 counts of homicide by use of a vehicle. A year earlier, while driving drunk, Meyer crossed the center line, killing a mother and her teenage daughter who were walking alongside the road. His blood alcohol content was nearly 3 times the legal limit. Before a packed courtroom, a family representative reads an emotional statement on behalf of the grieving husband and father whose life Meyer destroyed.
I am scared, stressed, overwhelmed, and most of all, heartbroken. No one has ever loved me as much and as completely as Becky and Raylia did.
Meyer then addresses the court.
There's nothing I can say that's gonna ease their pain. There's no words I can say to give them any peace. I continue to tell everyone I meet that when you drink, the first thing you lose is your judgment. I spend every day trying to make amends for this. I know nothing's gonna be enough. I can't expect and ask for forgiveness when I can't forgive myself.
Meyer's statement impacts many in the courtroom. But veteran Judge William Atkinson is perhaps the one affected most.
I've seen too many of these cases. I've seen too many people suffer from drunk driving. I recognize the pain. I can only imagine if my wife, my daughter, did not come home one night. Families come into this courtroom hoping that the sentence I impose will lessen the pain of the loss. It doesn't.
Prosecutors had asked for a sentence of 22 years for Meyer, but after weighing his lack of a criminal history, among other factors, Judge Atkins sentences him to 10 years. In closing, the judge makes a plea to all those impacted by the tragedy. It's advice he's become all too familiar at giving.
I hope I've planted the seed at some point in your lives. I hope you have the ability to obtain the freedom that comes with forgiveness.
Next, we go to a bond hearing in Miami-Dade County.
Oh, we're doing out of turn. Sorry about that.
The defendant is Juan Rodriguez, charged with attempted murder and aggravated battery in the stabbing of a nurse he believed had stolen from him at an assisted living facility in Miami.
Hey, sorry about that. Didn't give you a heads up.
The defendant appears remotely before Judge Beatrice Buchko.
1 second. He cannot be there when I talk to you.
From the moment the hearing begins, Rodriguez is making demands.
This guy cannot be there when I talk to you.
Oh, it was him. I thought it was the public defender.
No, I don't need him.
But things quickly take a turn for the worse.
Listen to me. You don't let me out of here, I'm gonna kill you.
When Rodriguez begins to threaten the judge.
I'm a Jew. I'm gonna take your life if you don't let me out of here.
So what has Rodriguez so worked up?
Okay? I'm done. Now let's eat breakfast. Now it's cooking.
According to news reports, Rodriguez is angry because he's missing out on the Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah.
I'm gonna kill you.
The judge casually brushes off Rodriguez's threats.
Juan Rodriguez is charged with attempted murder, first degree. I'm going to go ahead and appoint the public defender, seeing as that he doesn't appear to be in a condition to respond.
What do you want?
Appropriately.
What's your pleasure? What do you want from me?
The judge gives Rodriguez a stern look, but keeps her cool.
If you don't let me out of here, I'm gonna kill you.
Okay. Thank you, corrections. Probable cause, no bond. Appoint the public defender.
Without missing a beat, the judge orders Rodriguez held without bond. So that means he misses out on the apples and honey and the rest of the holiday meal.
Now let's eat breakfast. Now it's cooking.
1304-001, State of Arizona versus Christopher Robert Lesniak.
We're back in Maricopa County, Arizona, in the courtroom of Superior Court Commissioner Julie Newell. She's overseeing the arraignment of 50-year-old Christopher Lesniak, charged with aggravated assault. The victim, a man, isn't identified for privacy reasons and not present in court.
All right, does the state want to make a record?
No, Your Honor, no offer has officially been made yet.
As Commissioner Newell proceeds with the hearing, a woman from the gallery stands up, preparing to address the court.
Ma'am, please be seated. Please be seated.
I
was making an announcement.
Please be seated, and you'll make an announcement only when the court allows you to do that. Thank you.
The woman the commissioner is yelling at is Sheila Madden, a lawyer for the victim. Madden, a former commissioner herself, previously worked with Newell, but Newell would later claim she didn't recognize her.
You'll make an announcement only when the court allows you to do that.
Despite her former colleague's terse statement, Madden has the right to be heard at court proceedings involving her client.
Sir, if you bond out and fail to appear for your next court date, which is August 31st, a warrant could issue for your arrest and your trial could proceed in your absence. Understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
The rest of the hearing continues without interruption.
All right, good luck, sir.
But when it ends and Madden isn't called on, she again tries to address Commissioner Newell.
Judge, I wish to be heard.
Sir, ma'am, sit down, please.
I wish...
Ma'am, sit down! That's the last warning, otherwise get out of the courtroom. Leave the courtroom, or I will have you removed from the courtroom. I will have you removed. I will have you removed. Get out of the courtroom right now. Out of the courtroom right now. Get a deputy in here right now, please.
Despite the call for a deputy and the tongue lashing from Newell, Madden refuses to leave. And with the tension in the courtroom at its peak,
Judge, can I make a record?
The defense attorney steps in to try to simmer things down between the two former co-workers.
I'm sorry, but I've spoken with Sheila Madden. She represents the victim in connection with this case. I've worked with her, so she represents the victim. She was very professional in contacting me. She's a former judge. I hold her in high esteem just as I do you. So I don't want to be cut in the middle here, but...
I'm not taking any comments with regards to the victim in this case. That is for a later hearing.
Perhaps sensing it was a no-win situation, or knowing a deputy is moments away from removing her, Madden makes a move for the exit. As for Commissioner Newell, she would never hear any comments in regard to the victim in the case, or any other. The following day, she resigned from her position and later received a public reprimand for her harsh and inappropriate courtroom demeanor.
I will have you removed from the courtroom.
I am the living man whose mark is that of life.
Next, we're at the Gallatin County Courthouse in Bozeman, Montana.
The defendant, Ernie Wayne Tertelgit, he is not represented by counsel here today.
52-year-old Ernie Tertelgit is charged with obstructing a peace officer and resisting arrest after he was caught fishing without a license. The hearing is just underway.
Mr. Tertelgit has been charged with 2 misdemeanor offenses, which we'll be trying today.
I must object. I am not the name that he is referring to. I am the living man. The name that Mr. Riley refers to, ma'am, is held by the state in all capital letters and is identified by the state on the state's driver's license, ma'am. I am not the all capital fiction. I am the living man whose mark is that of life.
Tertelgit is representing himself today as the natural living man. It's his own interpretation of a sovereign citizen.
Mr. Tertelgit, you are not to interrupt Mr. Riley again.
Who can tell the living man in a commercial event such as this,
Sir?
Who has the right to tell the living man when he can speak and when he cannot speak, what sounds he can make and what sounds he cannot make?
You understand?
He is addressing British law, ma'am. He is a minister on behalf of Great Britain.
Great Britain? It seems this living man takes issue with the traditional British title of Esquire, being used in an American courtroom.
I'm going to hold you in contempt if you continue to disrupt this.
Ma'am, why? Please give me an honorable answer. Is a British recognized esquire asking questions in an American courtroom? Why is title of nobility applied behind this gentleman's name that is recognized as being banned from our country in the 1789 Constitution? Is nobody going to stand for our Constitution?
Tertelgit may not believe in courtroom formalities, but he does believe in interrupting. And Judge Wanda Drush has had enough.
Mr. Tertelgit, you'll be taken up to a jury room where we may watch the proceedings. I have reminded you twice now.
If I give you recognition.
Please stand up. Stand up.
No,
Stand up.
pick me up. I cannot give you recognition. I'm constrained by the United States Constitution of 1789.
Before he's escorted out, Tertelgit hurls a Yankee Doodle dandy of an insult at the prosecuting attorney.
Sir, you're a Bozeman native. What are you doing back in a British recognition? Should be ashamed of yourself.
Banned from participating, Tertelgit can only watch the courtroom remotely, as his case is finally able to continue. The jury would eventually find him guilty, and although jail time is waived, he's ordered to pay more than $400 in fines.
Our home should be a safe haven for all who dwell there, especially for children.
We're back in Jacksonville, Florida, for a hearing from the Court Cam archives. A grandmother's on the stand mourning the senseless loss of her young grandson.
I would never see him walk, play, smile, celebrate another birthday, Christmas, or realize his dreams.
Moments later, the courtroom erupts. That was the victim's family, and this was a fight that was a long time in the making. Nearly 5 years earlier, the defendants Andre Fisher and Derek Cummings were convicted of first-degree murder after killing a 5-year-old boy in his home during a drive-by shooting. Initially, both were sentenced to death, but the Florida Supreme Court later overturned it, ruling the killing was not premeditated, thus making it second-degree murder. With the death penalty now off the table, the men are back in court for resentencing.
Your Honor, I ask on behalf of my family, which has been altered for life, and the safety of our children and our neighborhoods, please give the maximum sentence possible. Thank you.
With emotions already running high in the courtroom, the victim's grandmother then shows a photo of her grandson lying in an open casket. Off camera in the gallery, the sobering image is an unbearably painful reminder to the boy's family, especially his father.
See where they put him, what they did to him.
The distraught dad attempts to leap on top of the defendants. After the boy's father first attacks, watch as the other defendant jumps up and reacts. More members of the victim's family pile on with fists flying. Someone even uses an umbrella. As one officer gets a defendant out of the courtroom, another stands guard on top of a table. Eventually, officers help the second defendant out of the courtroom and get everything back under control. The victim's father and 2 other family members are arrested and charged with contempt of court. As for Andre Fisher and Derek Cummings, they would later be resentenced to life in prison. That's all for this edition of Court Cam. I'm Dan Abrams. Thanks for watching.